Darius texted me last week, and I got on a call with him, and I was just like, "Man, what are you doing, D? How you doing?" And we're having a chat. And he's like, "Oh," so we talked like 45 minutes. All the way at the end, he's like, "Hey, man, there's somebody that wants to meet you." I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, there's this guy Adam. He came onto the call like him, Darius, and Adam are with the same company, right?" And he's like, every Tuesday they do a call, and they kind of bring an advisor up, and that advisor shares what's working for them, so it inspires the other advisors. And I'm sure you guys have experienced the same thing wherever you write for, right? And he says, there's this guy who came on, dude, we're 100 people, we're 100 agents in this company, and he's number 3. And he told me that, and he told all of us that what worked for him was your book. So with that said, Adam, would you like to come up today, my friend? And we'll have a nice conversation. There he is, Adam. Good to have you here.
Hey, man, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be on today.
Absolutely. So, Adam, we found we love to create these power hours in a way that really add value to the advisor community. So if you don't mind today, we'd like to have your permission to ask you some questions about, where you've come from, how you got started, and what the grind was like, maybe near the beginning. And then we'll talk about some of the techniques and tactics that you use so that Shift Nation can go out and use them right away. Would that be cool with you, brother?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay, awesome. So, Adam, I mean, you're working this. First of all, tell us, where are you right now in the world, and what were you doing before writing insurance?
Yeah, well, where I am right now looks a lot different than just a few years ago. But yeah, as you said, I've from what Darius shared, I've enjoyed seeing an accelerated growth in my business, largely as a result of reading the book and applying what I learned in it. But before this, and before being, I guess, an established advisor, I spent 16 years as a police officer, most of those years in the Kansas City area. And it was about 10 years ago that I had a realization. I'd been living check to check for a long time, and I was just really tired of that. I'd been in this career of police work thinking that over time I would make more money and do better for myself, and that just wasn't what happened. And so it's selfish, but frankly, I wanted to do better. I wanted to make more money, and I wanted to have more time freedom. So I decided to start my own business. What led me down the path of doing financial advising was a process I went through myself of learning how real wealth works. And I was like, I want to share this with other people and make this my livelihood. So that's what brought me into this.
Wow. Was that like, tell us a little, there's a lot of people here where financial planning, insurance, it's not their first gig, it's their second, third, fourth, fifth gig. So what was that decision-making process for you? I mean, it takes a leap of faith to go from a guaranteed paycheck to, basically only eating what you kill.
Yeah. I really short-circuited the story there because I know we're limited on time, but it was a process of several years of, okay, I'm unhappy where I'm at. Now I got to figure out what's next. And there's other career fields that are the same way that it was as a cop, but it's like, this is all I've ever done. This is all I ever know. So what am I going to do? And just through the process of going through my own journey of learning about finances, learning how you build wealth, and then having some meetings myself with other financial advisors. And what I was reading about how wealth works and what I was hearing from those advisors wasn't matching up. And I was like, man, there's got to be these disruptive things that I'm learning in the books that I'm reading. Infinite banking was one of the first strategies I learned as I kind of explored. And as you know, there are a lot of advisors out there that's not where they spend their time. They spend their time in the investment world or something else. And so that was an opening that I saw. And then I was investing in rental real estate, single family rentals. And in my meetings with a lot of advisors, most of them were like, good for you. That's not really my thing, but good for you if that works for you. And I thought, man, what if I can take these two strategies, these, investing in real estate to build wealth and the infinite banking concept, combine those and make a market for myself. And by the way, figuring that out was a process of brainstorming with my wife too. So again, short-circuiting the story, but that's kind of what the process looked like, Jeremiah, of getting from I'm not happy with what I'm doing to what am I going to do next to how am I going to be different and actually build a successful business.
Very interesting, because I know the Brits too were trying to focus on real estate investors when they got started. They were doing the seminars, the mailers, the cold calling. They like tried everything, which is what took them over, to YouTube. That's for another day. But Eve, did you have a follow-up question to that, or should we move forward?
I did, yeah, a little bit on the segue of the journey and the transition that you made. What was, and I think this is, I'm asking this because I think it might be something that Shift Nation feels and might help them as well on their journey, is what were some of the things that you had to personally overcome, or mindset things that you had to overcome to really make that switch and dive in?
Yep. So Jeremiah said it when he said, it's a big shift, pun intended. It's a big shift to go from having a steady paycheck and knowing what you make to, if I don't find a new client this week, I don't get paid either. Like that was a big, scary thing for me. And I wish my wife was here so that I could recognize her for the value that she was to me as a strong, supportive teammate. Now, my wife works a W-2 job, and so she does have that, predictable paycheck. But she was such an incredible teammate in working with me and being like, well, let's just plan this out. We have some savings. So let's talk about what's it look like if you don't make any money for the first 6 months in your business. What does that look like to our finances if you take that risk? And we basically mapped out and figured out how I could make no money for the first 6 months. And it made me feel like I had a runway.
Yeah.
And I didn't make no money for my first 6 months, but again, just being really honest about the journey, that first year was really challenging. I think I made a total of $11,000 my first year in business. It was challenging, but we had a plan, and I had my teammates' support, my wife's support. I know that's not everybody's situation. Some folks are single, and so then that looks different. But for my journey, I've got to say having my spouse as a partner in that was a huge deal to make sure that I had, a good launch pad.
Amen to that. I think we could all go on about the amazing spouses we have that help us to realize our dreams. I know I got one myself. So let's talk a little bit about the end of your first year, $11,000. We got people on this call that are doing that every day. We have people who are doing that every month. And there's people who, just like you in their first year, that's all they're going to make, this year. What was it that made you say, you know what, I'm going to stick to this. I'm going to keep pushing forward, despite I'm not going to let this amount of money, make me feel like this is not going to work anymore. Because I think a lot of members of Shift Nation have experienced either that feeling like, man, this is not working. It's not what I thought it would be. It doesn't look like what I thought. The other guy over there, the other girl over there is doing so well. Or people who just look at us and be like, you need to give up that thing, man. That insurance thing doesn't work. Like, what was it for you that kept you going into year number 2?
Part of it was logical in that I'd done a lot of research and I had talked to people who had experience, and they had been very honest with me about what to expect. And I was told that my first 3 to 5 years in this business would be one of the most challenging things I'd ever done. And that's proven true. I am wrapping up year 4 right now, and finally in a place where I'm making the best money I've ever made and as comfortable as I've ever been. But it took all of that time to get here. And so people were honest with me about what the journey was like. I want to go back also, though, to the part of the question about mindset. How did you adjust? Because there is definitely, as a business builder, there is a mindset thing that you really have to work through. And if you don't work through it, I think you'll quit. And that was just learning to feed myself every day, feed my mind every day with good stuff. So a call like this, a weekly call like this, or having mentors, people that were further down the path than I was, that had what I wanted. And then I do a lot of listening to, and I've kind of found who my favorite mentors are, but a lot of listening to, Jim Rohn and Darren Hardy and Steve Harvey. Oh my gosh, Steve Harvey gets me so inspired. So just listening to, YouTube clips of different mentors helping me fill my mind with that success mindset and learning how to put out the negative thoughts. Because for sure, being honest, for sure, there were plenty of days where I cried my way home from the office, driving home thinking, man, I don't know, maybe I need to give this up.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So you're into year 2, you're looking for inspiration. I picked something right there. You had mentors, so you had a support network. Eve, you talked about that earlier, right? You fed your mind positive things. So you engaged with the community, like a call like this, or find other people who are hurt further down the path. And part of that's when you and I met each other, literally, right? Like not in person, but we met each other through my book, Shift. So tell us, let's start diving in, because these are some of the things I'd love for some members of Shift Nation to start taking away. How did you find the book? And when you started going through it, what was the first idea that hit you that's like, you know what, I'm going to try that, and we can kind of go a little bit deeper?
Yep. So I got the book from another advisor who said, hey, I know you have an open mind, you're into trying different strategies and tactics. You don't have to do everything in this book. Just take this book, start reading, and just try one of the things and see if it makes a difference. And then if that works, try another thing. And so I really she's like, don't try to read it cover to cover, just find something, act on it, go with it. Which I think your introduction or somewhere in the book, you mentioned that too, of, hey, just implement one thing to start with. And so I took that advice. The first advice that I took was actually, I think it's in chapter 5, and I've got some notes here on it. Chapter 5 is the 1 simple trick for writing great emails. And just making the point of, when I would sit down to write emails to invite prospects either to meetings or events or whatnot, which, by the way, I leverage events a lot in my business. So how you craft that invite is important. And so I just would sit down and imagine, okay, here's the ideal person I want to talk to. And just having a conversational tone, then writing an email as I sent out that invite to a meeting or to an event. And that was really powerful. I immediately saw response rates go up and was able to, get multiple people to show up to events that we were doing, marketing events. And I would oftentimes get a yes to a meeting. So that was one of the first ideas, because it didn't require any capital. It just required me sitting down and crafting an email to the right person, to the ideal client. So that was one of the first ones.
The book is Shift. A lot of you are starting to ask about that. I'll give you guys a way you can get it for free and towards the end here. But I'm just going to take notes and kind of mind map what I'm learning from you, Adam, if that's cool. And then Shift Nation, we'll put this in the members area. For those of you that are members of Advisor Smacks, we'll put the mind map in there just as a kind of refresher if you want. So the first hack you used was write to one person. This is you, Adam, standing in front of a crowd, speaking to that one person. So you learned how to write emails. Can you give us an idea, like, how did you change the way you wrote an email? If you can just kind of maybe give us a little example to get people to show up to your events. I think that'd be really helpful.
Well, so without having read that tip in the book, I would have worked really hard to write something that I felt was catchy or attention grabbing, or, what's good marketing? What's going to get somebody to respond or whatnot, which, by the way, it's not bad to ask those questions. And I don't think it's bad to write that way. It's just that it wasn't coming across genuine as me. And what I found is, when I'm myself, I actually do attract my ideal clients. And I found that people can read tone and they can read authenticity in your writing. And so instead, I just tried to imagine my favorite client, which at this particular time, I remember the first time I sat down and wrote this, my favorite or my ideal client was Garrett. And Garrett happened to be a big case that I'd written, the biggest case I'd written to that point. And he was a real estate investor. So I just imagined I was sitting down having a drink with Garrett, having a conversation about why this event coming up was going to be important and why he would want to be there. And when I wrote it, it just, first of all, it was a lot easier to write. It came out quicker, and I didn't have to go back and delete a whole bunch of times and rewrite a whole bunch of times, because I just knew that I was talking like myself. Yeah. And it worked. It worked well. It got great response.
That's great. So, it's funny. Do you want to comment on that?
No, that was good. I was just going to say, I love that, because we spend so much time trying to craft the perfect email. And at the end of the day, it doesn't even sound like us. And you're exactly right. Is that your authentic self you can write as your authentic self and it comes through, and it's so much more believable and trustworthy because you're not putting on a front of anything. Mm.
Yeah. So one big takeaway, Shift Nation, is imagine the person. This is the chapter 5 in the book. Is imagine your best client, like when they see you or see your phone number, they're interested. They take the call. They love what you teach. So what you can do in that situation is when you're about to write or create a video, imagine that person, because what that does is it eliminates a lot of that self-doubt, a lot of that, what are people going to think about me? No, you just think about that one person that absolutely loves you, absolutely supports you, and loves what you do. And how would you say it to them? And that's how you do it. So well done. Thank you so much for that. And you're such an action taker, Adam. It just kudos to you, man. What was the next thing? So you start doing these emails, things are starting to, you're like, okay, snap, that worked. What happened after that?
So the other one was actually, and you mentioned it in chapter 2, it's the 9-word email. And I didn't actually just use this once. I actually revisit this because it's just, if you do this business and you visit with a lot of people, talk with a lot of new people, email, whatever, you always end up accumulating this list of people that fell through somewhere along the line. They were interested, then they dropped off the radar screen. One of you owed the other a phone call or an email and it just didn't get done, whatever. So at different points in time, I'll have a list of 30 people, 50 people, whatever, more or less, where it's like, man, I really do need to get back with these folks. I just know that somewhere along the line, there was an interest and then we never got to doing business. So when I came across that chapter on 9-word email, I'm like, man, that is so stupid simple, but yet I'd never taken time to write an email like that.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, and you can say it better than I can, Jeremiah, you wrote it, but it's, it's basically, hey, do you still need help with X or blank? Do you still need help with that? And man, really, really powerful because it's straight to the point. And actually, the reality is there's a lot of people out there that the answer is yes, but because you haven't followed up with them, there's not a meeting on the calendar. So the first time that I used that, I mean, it was ridiculous. The amount of, I got responses, I would say to 80 to 90% of the email I sent when I sent that.
Wow.
Got responses. And then meetings, I bet you I got meetings with 40 to 50% of the people, which is just, 40 to 50% at a crazy conversion ratio for getting meetings. And it's just a powerful, powerful thing. So I'll tell you what, Jeremiah, I'm coming up on after the 1st of January, I've got that list again. So it'll be time to do another one of those and that'll fill up January and February for me. I'll bet you.
Wow. So cool. I love to, I mean, I always hear stories about that. I think like the tally's now like $4 million in commissions that people have earned using and fees using, that email. I'm so grateful to hear that it's working. And exactly what you said, I want to kind of build a point onto that is that email is ideal, every, and I put this in the book, but every 90 days. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like every 90 days, maybe 120 days. You're not going to use it every week, but you're going to accumulate these people who they fell through the cracks. So put them all in a tool like MailChimp, Mailshake, or just do it one by one and get it out there. And it does work. It just kind of shakes the tree, right? Absolutely love it. That's great. So we did the right to one person. We did the 9-word email. What else did you try?
So there's a couple other, but one I want to make sure to mention before we run out of time, because it is, I think, the most consistent help to my business is you have a chapter talking about LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. And LinkedIn has been such an incredible tool for me. What you pointed out in your chapter on LinkedIn in the book is that advisors will get on for a certain number of purposes. Prospective clients are getting on LinkedIn with other purposes in mind. And if the advisors only knew why people are on LinkedIn and that they are actually using it to find and to vet different service providers, you could totally, if you would tailor your message and tailor what you're doing to finding those people and connecting with those people, it would be a really powerful thing for your business. And so I have really made a concerted and consistent effort on LinkedIn to use that as like a primary inbound lead source, because it doesn't cost anything. And I mean, it does cost time, but so I've really spent a lot of time with LinkedIn trying to develop a personal brand, understanding it as a long game, understanding that getting on LinkedIn today and making a killer profile today isn't going to necessarily equate to appointments tomorrow, but man, it's such a powerful tool to connect with people. I have done direct prospecting messages on there, where I've been able to connect with people and just like a get to know you meeting on Zoom. And then when we're in that get to know meeting, I get the chance to give them like a 30-second or minute value prop, and then that can lead to a follow-up meeting. So I have used it that way for direct prospecting, but I get a lot of inbound now on LinkedIn just because I've built enough of a consistent brand, meaning I'm putting posts out there that are relevant to the people I'm seeking out. So I've got an eye-grabbing post for a real estate investor, you know, something to do with a tax topic or something to do with leverage. And then I can talk about the infinite banking strategy. It's also been a great place to connect with podcast hosts. And I find if I can get into like an intro meeting with a podcast host, if their topic is around real estate investing or finances, that I often can generate some curiosity from them and get invited on their podcast, which is a crazy good way to get in front of new audiences. So LinkedIn has been my favorite tool in my business. And it was what I read in your book that kind of inspired me of, heck yeah, people are on there looking for a service provider. So I want to be the one that shows up on their radar screen.
Outstanding.
So are you niche down in that real estate space?
Yeah.
So you went on LinkedIn. Great question. Follow up to that. You're going after real estate investors on LinkedIn, right? Outstanding. It's funny because somebody just posted earlier. Well, we saw Chris. She said, you know, she's in our advanced LinkedIn curriculum, and she's like, I got a referral, I got to connect, and I got an invite to speak on a podcast. And this little angle right here, people just don't realize how you can leverage other people's tribes. Like a podcast host has invested so many hours of high quality time building a tribe, and they are begging for content, you know, and you being a subject matter expert and finding a niche, that's why niching is so powerful, because now you can focus down on exactly who you want to prospect. We had another graduate, one of our programs, you know, he's going after doctors on LinkedIn, and he's meeting with like 7 doctors a week now after the course, because he just focused on doctors. He had one publisher of a newsletter say to him, hey, because you have that picture of the doctor on your profile and you look like you talk to doctors a lot, I'd like you to write a column in my newsletter that goes to like 40,000 doctors about money, about finance, about retirement. So if all the course did was help him do that one thing, it would have paid for itself in spades, right? You can't buy that kind of exposure.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So anything else after that?
I did sign up for, and this kind of is similar to the podcast angle, but more to do with mass media. I did sign up for, I think you say it, Haro, H-A-R-O, which you mentioned in your book, Help a Reporter Out. Great way to get an email, actually 3 emails a day that tells you, you know, what mass media is looking for as far as content. And I have been published in a couple articles in several different media as a result of responding to Haro inquiries. So that's been helpful too, and another great source of inbound. What's cool about that too is that's evergreen. You know, if you get published in an article, it's out there forever. So it's crazy how sometimes, you know, I'll get a LinkedIn Connect or an email or something from somebody, and they read an article I contributed to a year ago. That's really cool.
Wow. What were some of the magazines?
One was Black Enterprise, interestingly. Another one was, it was Simple Finance, and I can't think of it. It wasn't like a huge name that you've heard of. I've not made it to like US News and World Report or Wall Street Journal yet, but you know, hopefully one of these days.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. It grows onto itself. Actually, the more minor outlets that you're seen on, the more they've already done the vetting and credibility. So the major outlets, USA Today, Kiplinger's, Barron's, US News and World Report, all of those guys look to that, and you're like, now you're a published expert, right? Hopefully, you have those logos on your banner. Hey, as seen on, right? And it just grows from there, and you get free leads from it. So who cares if it's not a major Wall Street Journal article? It's working. It's getting you leads.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Anything else?
Yes. The other thing was I did do the treat your clients to a movie night idea. And that was fantastic because it gives you an excuse basically to reach out to clients and follow up and say, hey, you know, I sent you the bucket with the movie stuff. Just curious, how'd you enjoy the movie? And it starts the conversation. And I did, for whatever reason, I guess kids policies were popular at that time. I did a ton of kids policies from that movie night thing where clients were like, you know what, I've been thinking and we've been needing to talk about, you know, doing this for my kids. So I ended up doing like 5 or 6 kids policies off a movie night where we sent it out to 30 households. And I thought, man, that's a good conversion rate.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. So we got a little couple here. They're snuggling up. They're watching the movie. That's actually one of Tom Hegna's movies, one of our partners. So outstanding. Eve, any follow-up questions so far?
No, there's just so many good takeaways. I know that a big part of that is reciprocity as a bias, right? Where you give to somebody and they feel like they want to give to you, but even just getting to know a little bit more about them, it's such a good way to open the door to a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to wrap it up here, Adam, but anything else that you tried that you want to share? I know you had your list. I want to make sure you got a chance to get through the list.
Those were all the ones that I've done so far. But of course, I'm looking forward to, now that my business has actually more than doubled. I was checking the numbers. I wanted to share this with you too, because this is so cool, Jeremiah. I never would have thought that I would get to, in my business, have these kinds of numbers. So before I read your book, my best year to that point was just shy of 200,000 in premium, life premium. And I just checked my numbers today for this year, and we're at 496,000. So it'll be more than doubled the business. I never dreamed of writing that much life premium, and I'm not even giving you the numbers on the investment side of the business. But I mean, it's been huge to my business. So I want to say thank you. And then I want to encourage anybody that's watching too, and you've read the book or you've picked up the book and haven't read it yet, just try one idea to start, because it'll do things for you. It'll make a difference. And thank you for the chance to share about it.